Hi everyone, this is Elizabeth at craftsbyhappystamper.com. Thanks for joining me today. This project is an easel box card and it is part of the Team Stamp It blog hop. It's a spring theme. Make sure you click on the link in the description in order to see a clear written out instructions with all the dimensions, as well as to get a chance to win the giveaway. You have to comment on the blog post. So let's just go ahead and jump right in because this is a somewhat long video, but I'm starting with watercolor paper. Most of the box is made out of watercolor paper because it's about 140 pounds, so it's much heavier than regular cardstock. So the first two pieces that you see me working with here are both 7 by 8.5 inches, and I'm scoring on 3 sides at the 1.5 inch mark. And remember, this is all written in the blog post, so you can easily copy it down. But once you have those scored, you can see that I'm just cutting out the corners that along the score line of one of the pieces. So one of the pieces I just cut off the corners completely. And then the next piece I cut up the score marks to where they cross, but I don't cut out the squares because I'm going to fold these together in order to create the drawer, where the drawer slides into. I'm not exactly sure what the technical term for that is, but I'm using my bone folder to fold all the creases. Because this is watercolor paper, it's really much easier with a bone folder. So you can see here how that's going to close up in order to cause the base. And now I'm using double-sided tape. Use any strong adhesive you have. This is score tape because I couldn't find my tear tape adhesive, but that would work fine as well. You could also use fast fuse, however, it could be a little sticky because you're putting a lot of tape on this and you're not going to seal it all right away, so it could get a little confusing. So you can see that both of the pieces will fit together to create with an opening on one side so that the drawer can be pulled in and out of that opening. So now I'm just closing the tabs that were on one of the pieces so that it folds up to be the base of the drawer. Or it could be the top of the drawer, whatever you want. It doesn't matter. It could be the top or the bottom. Now, because I didn't put tape all the way to the edges, I'm using a little bit of glue to make sure the flap is completely glued down so it's not like coming apart. So you can see I've got the base of the drawer done, where the drawer is going to slide into. Now I'm going to take off the adhesive that I already put on the inside, and I'm going to attach the top piece, which has the 3 flaps with the corners cut out. So you want to make sure it's as snug as possible. So you want to make sure you're very careful to line it up before you take the tape, the backing of the tape off. And I used my bone folder to make sure that the back piece was pushed as tight as possible because I couldn't fit my hand inside there at that point. So now I just set that aside when I was done. I don't know why that was so quick. But now I'm working on the drawer itself, which is an 8 1/4 by 8 1/4 8 1/8 by 8 1/8 scored at 1 3/8 on all 4 sides. And then I'm going to cut the flaps on all 4 sides so that they can fold up and create a drawer, because this drawer pulls all the way out. So it's going to have an open top that we're going to fill in with a piece of black cardstock. But you can see I'm just cutting along the score marks up the flat. And then I'm cutting a little diagonal piece off of the inside and the top of the flap before I use my bone folder to fold the drawer up, to fold all the sides up. And then the reason why I cut that little diagonal is because it helps me fit it much more snugly together. Now, when you make your drawer, don't do the same mistake that I just did. I put tape on the wrong side of these flaps at first because I wasn't really paying attention. And then I realized, oh no, I want the flaps to be on the inside of the box, not the outside of the box. So I have to go around again and add more tape to the other side. So later I will cover up the tape on the inside by just putting a piece of watercolor paper, and I think it blends in fine. It certainly wasn't worth it to me to start all over again, although you could do that if you wished. But, we all make mistakes, and I don't think it really affects the look of the box at all. I think the box still looks great. So once you put those together, the drawer pulls in and out nice and easily. I was just checking that there. But now I have a top and the bottom of the box. So the top and the bottom is 6 by 6 watercolor paper. And this was a little bit difficult for me to do. I took the 6 by 6 watercolor paper. It's going to create a little overhang on the box. So I'm putting glue on top of, or on the bottom of where I want the drawer to be. And then I'm trying to line it exactly up exactly in the center of that 6x6 paper. And because I can't easily see on all sides as I'm gluing it down, it was kind of hard for me to center it. But then I added more glue on top, and now I'm putting another panel directly on top of the drawer. So you'll see that now the base, that where you tuck in the drawer, has a lip on the top and the bottom, and it makes it look more like, you see the lip there, I'm showing it better there. The one on the left is a different completed one. You can see I used these little feet. They're called like button plugs, that you can get them at Joann's or at any hardware store. So once those feet are on the bottom of that other one, but I didn't have enough to put feet on the bottom of this one. So I'm just going to go ahead. On top of the base layer, I used a black piece of cardstock, which is 5 3/4 by 5 3/4, and then I decided to line the inside of the drawer also, which is a 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 black piece. So I cut 7 sets of side panels, and I wanted my typeset designer series paper to be matted by the pink pirouette, and that matted by the black cardstock. So in order to make those 7 sets, I had to have 5 1/4 by 1 1/4 for the black, a 5 1/8 by 1 1/8 for the pink, and then 5 by 1 for the DSP. And I made 7 of them. And the 7th one I kept separate because I had to punch holes in it for the handle to go through, because this handle is actually screwed on. So you can see me first I used my big bite to punch holes, but it's actually much easier if you have a handheld hole punch to punch it than it is to get the big bite in there, because it's just so big. It's hard to get it into that little area. So I wasn't even able to get my big bite into the drawer to punch the holes, so I just used my paper piercer to try to kind of like tear it apart. And then I'm trying to push the screws through the back, and this was a long process for me. It's much easier if you have a little screwdriver, but I did not have one, so I was trying to do it by hand, and I had to kind of like jerry rig it, and it was a long process for me because I could not do it very easily by hand. They fit pretty tight in there, but you can see it looks beautiful. This handle and this design was given to me by a friend of mine, Brenda Riviera. So now we're going to make the easel card, and the easel card is 5 1/2 by 11, scored at 5 1/2 and 2 3/4. And you can see the way I bend it so that their base is 5 1/2 by 5 1/2, and then you have, the top, which has a fold in it. So in order to make the inside panel, there's a 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 black mat with 5 1/8 by 5 1/8 DSP, and I'm just gluing that into the center of the inside of the easel card. And there's going to be another little panel that's 3 5/8 by 4 1/8 black mat with a 3 1/2 by 4-inch watercolor cardstock. So I am putting this together before stamping on it just to show you what it looks like, and later I'll stamp on it and show you later, but I just wanted to save time in the video. But so I'm going to make the top of the easel card, and I take my DSP, which is 5 1/8 by 5 1/8, and I cut 2 inches deep at the roughly the 2 1/2 inch mark. And then I used my ruler and glue dots. So you can see me getting some glue dots ready there. But then I realized, oh yeah, I need my ruler. So the reason why you need your ruler is because if you try to bend this back without having a straight line to fold it on, you will rip the designer series paper right at the center where it meets. So if you use a ruler, it won't rip, and it will look very uniform. So I used a ruler and folded it back, and I used little glue dots in order to keep the flaps down. And then I just took my designer series paper and matted it to the black mat, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. And then once the black mat is finished, you can mat it onto the pink pirouette card base, which is 5 1/2 by 5 1/2. So when you make an easel card, you actually need extra of the card base material because you have to do a separate complete panel to glue onto the flap. So you see I have this bent part of the card base here. I'm just putting glue on the bottom half of the bent part, and then I'm lining up my top panel and making sure it's lined up exactly and gluing that down. So there's really only glue on the bottom half of it. And right now I'm just realizing that that was upside down, but oh well, I'm moving on. So once I finished that, I decided to add a couple dimensionals. So you can see that I use dimensionals on the inside to help keep up this inside sentiment panel, and that's so that you can the easel card will stand up on its own. If it's not raised a little, then it will have a hard time standing up on its own. And then I glued it to the top. And then the only thing left you have to do is decorate the panel, stamp the sentiment that you want, and then decorate the front panel and the inside panel. So one thing I do want to mention that I did wrong when I made this the first time is that when I stamped my inside sentiment, I stamped it on watercolor paper because I wanted it to match everything else, but I used Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and it turns out that that smears on watercolor paper, which I was shocked to find out. But so I use the archival black ink to stamp, and that doesn't smear. So there's a close-up of some of the decorations, and you can see that I just stamped from the Feel Good stamp set, and I used the Botanical Gardens Botanical Builders framelits in order to dress up the outside of this box. And I think it looks gorgeous. I love the little pull handle for the drawer, and it does pull completely out, which I just think is absolutely gorgeous. So I hope you liked this project. I know I rushed through it, but since all the dimensions are on my blog, I figured you didn't really need to see that. You just needed to see how I put it together. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. And don't forget to check out the giveaway that is on the blog post if you click on the link in the description. Thanks. Bye.